Okay, I'd like to make an interesting note on wealth redistribution. Right, let's take a society where the minimum wage is $20 an hour, and let's say a dentist, a highly trained professional, earns $200 an hour, 10 times the minimum wage. Now here's a question. Why is the dentist earning $200 an hour to basically do similar to what a butcher does, pull out a teeth here and there or whatnot? Why is it necessary to pay such a terrifying amount of money for basic services on your mouth? To a degree, of course, it's because the dentist requires special training. He has to spend years in university to do what he does. That creates a barrier to entry to enter that profession, and no one's going to go through all that awful tedious work at university unless there's a pot of gold at the end of it. So that's how the barrier to entry works, to restrict the supply and therefore make dentists extremely expensive. However, what's interesting is that the prerequisites, the licensing system that demands that you spend, let's say 10 years in a university rather than 2 years in a university, works exactly to artificially inflate the wage, even though only 2 years may have been all that was truly required for 95% of dentist work. So what we have is a mechanism, barrier to entry, that leaves us with people earning $200 an hour, while so-called unqualified or underqualified or underskilled people earn $20 an hour. Never mind if the jobs they're doing as a minimum wage worker are still absolutely essential, as so many of them are. Now, this is kind of known by people, at least instinctively. The man who's just pulling out teeth for $200 an hour watches the nice, happy, smiley cafe girl give him his coffee and cake, which he values greatly, at the local cafe, and he knows she's earning $20 an hour. He can't help feeling a bit uncomfortable about that. He knows it's not really right, these kinds of income extremes. So when the government comes up to him and says, well, we're going to tax you heaps of money, okay, to create the redistribution, to make it fair, because that really nice cafe girl is struggling. She's not paying, well, she can pay her bills, but she's not saving for a house or anything like that. And so the dentist goes, yeah, all right, give me the really high taxes, the high tax bracket. If my income then becomes, after tax, say $100 an hour, well, who cares, really? I'm still perfectly comfortable on that and getting ahead financially. I'm not too worried about it. And so he accepts it. He doesn't get too much political backlash against that. So that's one way of creating wealth redistribution. We just do it with tax. But relating to my general example of how we massively inflated the dentist's wages, we can see a funny little kick in the game. That is, so many jobs pay so much more money, not because of their inherent productive value, but because of the mechanisms of protectionism and barrier to entry that artificially inflate wages. The number one mechanism for that, of course, is this thing we call education. It's probably about 90% of it is actually a mechanism to achieve barrier to entry into certain jobs. So we can sort of guess as to where the other mechanism for creating wealth redistribution would come from, and that is to dramatically reduce the barrier to entry for a given profession so that everything moves in the direction of an apprenticeship format and keep universities out of it, and lay off these sometimes ridiculous licensing demands to dramatically reduce the wages of dentists, doctors, builders, whatever you can think of, so that these jobs are not hugely different from serving coffee and cake in a cafe. And if we had a system like that, where dentists only spend 2 or 3 years in a university, well, they might be earning, you still require a fair bit of talent for that job to be good at it, $45 an hour, with the cafe girl earning $20 an hour. So that gives us redistribution. Hang on. But the cafe girl earning $20 an hour doesn't get an increase in wages. But then again, she does, because the value of money is the value of purchasing power. And if that dentist bill comes down to a quarter of what it was before, she has effectively got a pay rise, of course. And on for all the other professions. Cost of housing comes down, cost of everything comes down when you stop artificially inflating wages with artificial barriers to entry. Now, there's one big problem with that system of redistribution. When you take away the problem in the first place, that is, when you take away the situation where you have a whole lot of low-level wage earners, minimum wage earners, and a whole lot of people who earn huge money, when we have that really steep slope between the bottom and the top, then when you take that away, there's no room for the government, or no reason for the government to get involved with wealth distribution. And so basically the tax base collapses, because there's no need to tax, because people don't need the government's help, because the redistribution, so to speak, is taken care of by allowing natural, rational markets to function. And there's a big problem with that for governments who like to control people. You know, he who giveth can take it away. When you've got a society of minimum earners and very small minimum earners and very big maximum earners, then when you tax that money, you can threaten not to give it. You can control people. You can be like Christopher Luxon, for example, who once threatened through the National Party to take away benefits for people who don't get their children vaccinated. Once again, they can take it away and threaten not to give. And that's powerful. So what we're looking at today with that steep slope, high taxation society, is just government control. Giving the government more functional power in our lives. Making people structurally more dependent on them, when really they never needed to be dependent on them in the first place if they just got their regulatory systems right from the beginning, and once again stopped creating artificial barriers to entry that cause so much unnecessary disparity. Thank you.